speaking of things that we are looking forward to, I'm looking forward to your tip of the week, Eric, because it has to do with a pretty familiar challenge for MSPs, and you've got some thoughts on how to overcome it.
Absolutely, Rich. And, I'll start off by saying, you know, building an MSP practice, the framework of building a business is pretty similar, right? Notwithstanding what it is that you're focusing on selling or delivering, right? There are some basic best practices in any business's growth that, you know, uh, accelerate or impede growth, right? And we're talking about having a good business plan. We're talking about having a unique value proposition that resonates with your target audience. And we talk about the ability to sell and market effectively. What happens after you figure out those things and you've gotten to the point where you've got your UVP down, you're selling, you're marketing, and you are closing business? That is, a milestone in the growth of any company when we can, repeatedly generate sales, leads and sales. And I know that is a big milestone for MSPs in particular. But once we achieve that milestone, we now, Rich, have a repeatable process to market our services and sell them consistently. The next choke point becomes onboarding these new clients. And, a tip of the week ripped from the headlines. I'm working with a client right now, and they've solved for the first few things, and now they're having to ratchet back their go-to-market strategy because they haven't yet figured out how to optimize and onboard the onboarding process for new clients efficiently. And it's become a choke point. And you know what happens, Rich, when you get a client all excited to come on board and they're ready to rock and roll and they sign the agreement and they pay you that first check and it takes forever to onboard them? Nothing good. Nothing good happens, Rich. That's the answer. They lose confidence. They lose zeal. You start getting into that trough of disillusionment that we were just talking about in that client relationship. So that's what today's tip of the week is about, Rich. It's about overcoming these client onboarding challenges. Now, I'm not going to share anything that is, rocket science. There's no silver bullet here. It's the same best practices that I've been, speaking about for years, the things that I learned in the enterprise before I even thought that I would, want to become an entrepreneur one day and start my own practice. But there are three specific things that I just want to cover quickly, just to keep things top of mind for, our partners out there that are struggling with, delivering a consistent onboarding process. Before I get into those three, I will share, beyond the disillusionment that you'll have with the new client and them starting to doubt their decision to move forward with you, lots of other things happen after you feel like you've gotten them onboarded. Well, if we're just trying to do the minimum, to get clients onboarded so we can begin delivering a modicum of service, there's all kinds of problems with that. We are not documenting their infrastructures correctly. We're probably not integrating our platforms properly, configuring everything to the optimum level so they can really measure what's going on, monitor and remediate things. Or we may be cutting corners at adding all of the users into the system. So when, tickets start getting opened up, we don't know who they're associated with. All these things that can happen that not only erode client confidence, erodes your team's morale, can increase disillusionment among, the larger organization. I'm talking about your MSP itself. And ultimately, you're delivering services so inefficiently that you're losing money. And what happens now is, Rich, you're reacting to these things in such a way that you can't scale. And then you think that the answer is, oh, let's go hire more technicians. Well, that's not the answer. Until you solve these fundamental issues, you're just throwing more costly labor at the problem, and they go through the same disillusionment. Like, oh my goodness, there is no established process. We don't have our systems optimized. We're not onboarding correctly. So when tickets are being opened, it takes us 3 times longer to resolve the issue because of some of these inadequacies in our onboarding process and failure to document things. So quickly, Rich, I'll take a breath. getting passionate about this. Number one, document your onboarding process and structure it in phases. It is a project. It is a project. So if I can reach some of my MSP brethren and sistren, if that is a term, Rich, and say look at it as a project. There are phases. Prioritize the most important phases, document how that's done, and then create clear steps and timelines where these things have to occur in order to ensure a smooth transition to them becoming clients that you can serve. Number two, this one's tougher. Dedicate an onboarding team. You may have a small team of technicians and engineers, and everyone is spinning plates all the time. But as you grow and mature, you know that you should be segmenting your incident management processes, tiering your service desk staff in such a way so that level one tickets are only delivered to level one engineers, level two and level three that way. So it's not costing us 3 times as much to close level one tickets. And we have a process where we're training each tier of those service desk staff on exactly how to resolve the tickets that they are being assigned, right? And nothing else, so that we become more efficient. Same thing with an onboarding team. Now, this may not be a team that only does onboarding, but one step forward, Rich, could be, hey, whenever we're onboarding a new client, these 2 or 3 resources within the organization are tapped in. There's tickets created, there's a project, and they are now focused on that as a priority, perhaps, outside of their normal, KPIs, right? We've got to onboard these clients quickly to maintain that high level of satisfaction, because during onboarding, one of the phases is when the sales professional that sold that account, Rich, shows up. And it's almost like when you buy or sell a home, right? What happens like the day you're moving in or out? Your realtor shows up with a bucket of chicken and some soda or a pizza or something and congratulates you and continues that relationship and tries to get referrals from you. So if you're having a rocky onboarding process, you're really stymieing your sales potential during that onboarding process. This should be the peak of a client satisfaction. They've signed your agreement, things are happening, you're showing up, everybody's excited, and this is the best time to do that sales follow-up, the 7th step of the sales process, Rich. The close is not the last step, it's the follow-up that happens. And we typically do that when the client is at their happiest, before we've had a chance to accidentally screw things up yet, right? Number 3, standardize on your onboarding tools. Rich, there's a ton of really good tools that help us automate onboarding processes now. Identifying identifying everybody that's in Active Directory or in the user's accounts. Identifying all the SaaS applications, identifying all of the devices and the services and the platforms in the organization, so that we can begin to onboard and deliver and configure all of these things in a more automated fashion. And I'm looking forward, Rich, because I am excited about AI. I'm looking forward to the value that AI brings. We're already seeing it improving some of the platforms that MSPs are using today. It's going to continue to do that. But those are the top 3 things, Rich. Structured onboarding process, dedicated team of individuals, not folks that are just being tagged in willy-nilly to onboard the next client, this or that. You're training folks in these structured processes to deliver it. And then, investing in and optimizing and configuring and integrating your tools to automate as much of that as possible, to avoid forgetting things on a checklist or human, errors in configuration and things like that. You'll be happier, your clients will be happier, and your sales team will be super happy.
It's a bit of a cliche, Eric, but cliches become cliches for a good reason quite often, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? You nail the onboarding process, and you build up this kind of pool of credit that you can draw on later on if you screw something up. And conversely, if you screw up onboarding, you're going to have to work hard to earn that client's trust and confidence going forward. So it pays to be smart and be methodical about onboarding. I love the emphasis on documentation. It reminds me of something that our mutual friend Carl Palachuk, an MSP consultant, likes to talk about, which is the power of checklists. But also, what you're trying to do basically is come up with a process that is proven and that works, get that down in writing, and then do it consistently the same way every time. You're going to get better results that way. And checklists can help make sure you don't leave anything out of that. And then, I'll kind of skip ahead to the third step, which comes back to something that comes up a lot these days, which is automation. So to the extent that you can use tools to be more efficient about how you do onboarding and maybe more consistent as well, it's a really smart thing to do. Quick question for you, though, Eric, because you were talking about approaching this like a project. And I know because we've spoken about it on this show and at other times in the past, if you're a believer not only of dividing projects into phases, but to having meetings with the client in between phases. Is that something MSPs should be looking at doing during onboarding? If you're transitioning from phase 1 to phase 2, is there an opportunity in there to talk to the client and see how things are going?
It's absolutely an opportunity that is so often missed, Rich. First missed opportunity is not seeing it as a project. Everybody has their definition of what is a project. Is deploying a new desktop for a new user a project? Probably not, right? My definition of a project is when you have to manage risk and you have to phase the deliverable in such a way so that you're managing the risk, and if something does go wrong, you can kind of roll back to a previous state. And you're referencing a tip of the week that I shared on the program a little bit ago when I said, a project is delivered in phases for several reasons, right? Number one, to manage risk. Number two, to make sure that you're having regular touch points with your client. And typically, I like to set up these phases in such a way so that I can meet with a client when we've successfully completed that phase and everybody can agree that that phase has been completed successfully to everyone's expectation, and they sign off and approve it. Same thing with onboarding. If you're onboarding in phases, maybe you're onboarding multiple locations. Maybe you're onboarding a location at a time and doing a phase review. Maybe you're onboarding a little bit larger organization, Rich, and you're onboarding business units at a time. Maybe you're breaking down your phases based upon technologies being onboarded. Let's say that there's a cloud migration that needs to happen. Maybe there's some migration from an email system to on-prem email to M365 or something like that, or migrating part of an application as part of this. Maybe there's an infrastructure upgrade that goes on during onboarding. Absolutely, you should be conducting phase reviews and making sure that you are presenting the results of those phases for your client to say, yes, I agree, you've completed this phase successfully. And when you have, let's say you have a 5-phase onboarding process, Rich, if the client signs every phase of those phase review documents, approving that phase has been delivered to their satisfaction, then you control when the project is over, whether that's an onboarding project or that's an infrastructure project. In many cases, when we're failing to do that, we relinquish control of the perception of when the project is over to the hands of the client. And how many of us have had that wonderful experience when we feel that we've done everything we're supposed to do, and the client says, well, no, you were supposed to do these 3 other things that we never agreed to do, right? And maybe they had a side conversation in a hallway with a technician and said, hey, while you're over here, could you also do this? And the technician said, oh yeah, no worries, we'll take care of it. And that never goes anywhere. So these are the kinds of things that, can help accelerate confidence and trust in a client when we do these things properly. And we're just setting and meeting the expectations that we want. We're doing the phase reviews like you mentioned, Rich, to build that trust and confidence. Like we are delivering what we said we will deliver. And that sets the expectation for the client of what comes next. Wow, if onboarding went so well, I can't wait till we're really getting service. And that means I can't wait to that next QBR meeting when I'm going to be told what else I need to invest in. And I can't wait to say yes because I understand how the project rolls and how you guys.
And I can't wait to renew my contract. Good advice on a very important topic, folks.